Well, good afternoon. At the last election, we took an economic plan that was designed to deliver stronger economic growth and more jobs. And it has done exactly that. Australia has the strongest economic growth for many years and stronger than any G7 economy. We have the strongest jobs growth last year of any year in our history. Now, part of our economic plan was the enterprise tax plan to reduce company tax, beginning with small and medium businesses and then extending to all businesses over time. Matthias skillfully negotiated the first part of the company tax plan through the Senate, and so as a consequence, now businesses with turnovers up to $50 million are paying less tax. And there's 3.3 million of them, and they employ most of the private sector workforce. And that is one of the reasons, a big reason, why we're seeing this strong jobs growth. Now, we sought to extend this tax cut to the rest of the corporate sector. And the goal was simply to ensure that Australia's company tax rate is competitive. The United States, as you know, has reduced its company tax rate to 21%. The UK has gone down to 17%. France has gone to 25%. By 2020, in the absence of further reform, we'll have the highest company tax rate in the OECD other than Portugal. Now, having said that, we have to recognise in this and all contexts the iron laws of arithmetic, and we have not been able to secure the support of the Senate. Now, we've negotiated very hard. We've offered to exclude the big banks. We offered an amendment to do that. And while that's, that would be subject to some criticism, and I know some senators on the crossbench did not favour it, it does have a precedent in the United Kingdom where the banks pay a higher rate of company tax. However, the reality is that it cannot pass the Senate, and I think the truth is that the political climate, which used to have a broad bipartisan consensus, as you've heard from so many Labor leaders and treasurers, that lower company tax creates more investment, higher productivity, more jobs and higher wages, a proposition that has been proved true again and again. While that consensus used to be there, it is there no longer, and there is a lot more work that needs to be done. So we will not be taking the tax cuts for larger companies to the next election. We are going to review our enterprise tax plan insofar as it applies to small and medium businesses and focus on how we can provide enhanced support or perhaps an acceleration of the tax cuts for the small and medium businesses. And the Treasurer and I and the Finance Minister and the ERC will be working on that. I want to also say that we have part of our negotiations, as I think everybody knows, has involved the energy supplement, which is part of the compensation for the carbon tax, which has long been, of course the carbon tax having been abolished, has long been an item that has been, the subject of our policy to repeal or at least to reduce. Again, it is absolutely clear to us that with the issue of energy prices being so prominent, we will not move to repeal the energy supplement. Now, as you can imagine, this is not a rash decision. We have provided for that in the contingency reserve, so there is no adverse budget impact by that change in policy that I'm announcing now. So I want to thank Matthias for his hard work in the Senate. I want to thank Scott for his hard work on designing and promoting the enterprise tax plan. It is part of our economic plan. We've not been able to secure the passage of the tax cuts for the larger companies, and what we'll now focus on is the small and medium businesses, overwhelmingly Australian family-owned, which employ most of the Australian private sector workforce. So I'll ask the Treasurer and the Finance Minister to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you also for your role, which has been significant in leading us at the last election, where we took that policy to the election, and we were successful. We made a promise together that we wanted more competitive business taxes in Australia. The Australian people affirmed that in an election, and we have been working to implement that promise every day from now till then. And I want to commend Matthias Cormann for the role he has played in seeking to have that promise kept. We're a government that keeps its promises, that works hard to keep its promises, and we will continue to keep that promise for lower, more competitive taxes, not just for small and medium-sized businesses, but for all Australians, because we believe Australians should keep more of what they earn. We believe in a fair go for those who have a go, and that's what our enterprise tax plan was all about. Labor used to believe in those things. They don't believe in them anymore, and that's why they're such a risk and a threat to the Australian economy. I'm often asked about what the risks and threats are to the Australian economy, and they are certainly a very big one, not just to our AAA credit rating, but to the growth and the increase in employment that we've seen. Youth unemployment today is at its lowest level since 2012. Hundreds of thousands young people in jobs, which is why we come to work every day. Our stronger plan for a stronger economy is delivering on those outcomes. The enterprise tax plan was a key part of that plan, and we've already been able to legislate a very significant part of it for small and medium-sized enterprises. But it's also about the defence industry plan. It's also about the medical industry plan. It's the infrastructure plan for $75 billion, which is investing in Australia's productive capacity. It's about the personal income tax relief that we've been able to legislate through both houses of parliament with great opposition from the Labor Party. It's about what we've done for start-up businesses. Under the new angel investing provisions, we've seen $300 million of additional investment go in. Under the enterprise early venture arrangements, we've seen that go from $600 million to $1 billion, backing in businesses who have great ideas, who want to take our economy forward and create jobs. So that's what this plan was all about. We still believe in having lower, more competitive taxes. It is a great shame that the Labor Party and the One Nation Party and others who voted to ensure that Australia has the second highest corporate tax rate in the world is what those businesses are now facing. That's not a great position to be in, but you have to work in the realm of the possible in government, and that's what we've done. That's why we've been able to get so much done. And on the pensioner supplement and the other supplements that go with the energy, just to let you know, $14.10 and $10.60 is what those payments are for single at $14.10 and for a married couple $10.60. They are payments that will continue to be eligible to new entrants into payments. Remember, the proposal was not that anyone currently who was getting those supplement payments would have them removed. That was a lie from the Labor Party to scare pensioners, which is what they do. No pensioner was ever having a payment they were currently receiving being taken away. What this means is those who were going onto those payments into the future, they will now continue to get that same level of payment. And that's what those rates are. And as the Prime Minister has said, that decision was taken in the lead up to this year's budget, and it was held in the contingency reserve. It has no impact on the numbers that we outlined at the time of the budget.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Our economic mission as a government is to ensure that families around Australia have the best possible opportunity to succeed and get ahead. We understand that for families around Australia to have the best possible opportunity to get ahead, we need to ensure that the businesses that employ them and pay their wages have the best possible opportunity to be viable, to be competitive, to be profitable into the future. That is why we were so committed to secure the passage of this 10-year enterprise tax plan through the Senate. And it's fair to say, and I think nobody in the Senate would question that we did everything we could to secure the passage of that legislation. We truly left no stone unturned. I'm personally disappointed that we failed to secure the necessary support, but it is of course now important to pragmatically take stock of where we are and to make judgments about the best direction into the future. Our commitment remains unchanged. If we want to ensure that working families around Australia have the best possible opportunity to get ahead, we need to ensure that the businesses that employ 9 out of 10 working Australians have the best possible opportunity to be viable, to be competitive and successful into the future. And we need to continue to focus in particular on our international competitiveness. And when it comes to big business, there's no doubt that big business needs to do work to make sure that people across Australia actually better understand the importance of their contribution to our future economic security, to our future economic prosperity and success. Not only do they employ many millions of Australians directly, they of course buy products and services from millions of small and medium-sized businesses here in Australia. And if we make it harder in Australia for big business to be successful into the future, that ultimately has a flow-on effect across the whole economy. So we obviously accept that we haven't been able to secure this through the Senate, and as the Prime Minister and the Treasurer have indicated, we will now focus on how best to proceed into the future, prioritising small and medium-sized business.
Can we deal with company tax, even if only briefly? And the energy. Yeah.
On the plan, you're going to look at bringing forward the drop to 25% for the SMEs. That's currently scheduled 26-27 to hit that rate. Budget permitting, will that be your intention to bring it forward to the next term of Parliament, thus you can make it an election issue?
Well, it's all of this is under consideration, but the focus will be on small and medium companies, Australian family-owned businesses. I think, as I said, there used to be a consensus that lower company taxes, as I said, led to higher productivity, more investment, more jobs and higher wages. And that, I think I'm quoting something Bill Shorten said, actually almost word for word. So there was always been a consensus on that, but you can see that there are many reasons for that, which you're all right about, but the consensus is no longer there. So it's important, I think, to recognise that reality, focus on the small and medium part of the business sector, which, while none of these companies are giant corporations, they do employ more than half of all Australian workers in the private sector.
What do you think of Peter Dutton's idea of dropping the GST from energy bills, and is that policy on the run from your leadership rival?
Well, it's certainly very expensive, but I might ask the Treasurer to describe what it would cost, and also, needless to say, it would that the states would definitely expect to be reimbursed. I mean, look, we've just done a big reform of the GST. Let's be frank. We have one of the many wicked problems we've dealt with in recent times is the inequitable distribution of the GST under the existing formula to Western Australia. In order to make that work, we have had to contribute a substantial amount, in the order of about $1 billion a year, from existing other federal revenues to the GST pool. So if one were to remove a big item like that from the GST pool, obviously the states would expect to be reimbursed, and that would have to come from other federal taxes.
So the cost of that, based on the work that the Parliamentary Budget Office did on Senator Lernholm's proposal, would be around over $7 billion, about $7.5 billion over 4 years. So the Prime Minister is right. Any change to the GST, as you know, or to its rate or its base, has to be agreed by all states and territories. And I'm sure they would say, well, if you want to do that's fine, send us $7.5 billion. Now, that would be a budget blower, an absolute budget blower. And on top of that, or the alternative would be to scuttle the WA GST package. So, I mean, these are the difficult choices you have to make in government, and you can make all sorts of promises about how much money you're going to spend, but at the end of the day, you've got to account for it. And so the other thing I'd say is this. This is how you get electricity prices down for all these people. It's exactly what the Prime Minister and I were talking about yesterday. You have the safety net price to ensure that the standard offer comes down to the default price, saving that money for all Australians, not just some, all Australians who are paying energy bills. You do it by having a big stick to keep the energy companies in line, and you do it by backing in the investment in new generation. And the other thing you do is you give people personal income tax cuts, which we've legislated, and for a modest income household, that's over $1,000 a year they're getting in income tax cuts in this financial year, and that is half a household's power bill. That's how you help households. You give them tax cuts, and you get electricity prices down.
The iron laws of arithmetic. Peter Dutton says when the numbers add up for him, he's coming to get your job. How do you respond?
Well, it's we had a ballot earlier this week, as you know. So I think yesterday, in fact. So the iron laws of arithmetic confirmed my leadership of the Liberal Party.
Prime Minister, the neg is dead. Your company tax policy is dead. What do you
that's
fight
not-
the next election on?
Well,
what policies do you have left?
Well, can I say to you that we have delivered. We've delivered on our platform that we took to the election. The the larger end of the company tax cuts is one part that we couldn't get through the Senate, but we have got so much more through this Parliament than anyone imagined. I can't describe how many press conferences I've had out here where one of you have said, "Why don't you admit you'll never get this through the Senate?" And then, due to the charm of Matthias Cormann and his colleagues in the Senate, the impossible has been achieved. And so the reality is, as Scott described, our economic plan goes well beyond company tax cuts. Look, I know the Labor Party want to represent it like that, but Scott mentioned trade. I mean, our commitment to free trade and open markets alone is creating thousands of jobs. I mean, look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That was another project that was written off as dead, and I was told to stop flogging a dead horse. And John Key and I decided that if the horse was dead, it wouldn't mind the flogging, so it was worth standing up for Australian and New Zealand jobs, and we did. Persuaded Shinzo Abe to come on board, and now you've got it, the TPP-11. So, yeah.
What's the point of your government now, though, now that you've dropped this policy because
Hang on,
of Labor?
I'll just go to Laura, and then the gentleman there in the middle. Yeah.
Prime Minister, you've said that consensus has been broken on company tax, and so you're not taking it to the next election.
No.
You've talked about a shift to a focus to small to medium business, but there's a lot of money that was tied up in those tax cuts. Do you see some of it going into the delivery of services, into health and education, and possibly infrastructure, or is it all just going into more tax relief for small to medium-sized business?
I'll ask the Treasurer to address that.
Just on the fiscals, on the broader points, I'm sure the Prime Minister would have observations, but on the plan that's in the Senate, over the budget and forward estimates, on what was presented, it's $600 million. That's what it's not $80 billion. That's a complete nonsense and another Labor lie. It's $600 million, and over on what is the bill before the Senate has been before the Senate. Over the current budget and forwards, on that base, it's $1.3 billion. So this is not a sum of money that delivers large personal income tax costs, things like that. You've seen the cost of those in the bills we've already passed. What the Prime Minister has said is we'll be focusing what we now do on tax going to the next election, consistent with what we believe about people keeping what they earn, and particularly small businesses, on small and medium-sized businesses. The Turnbull government has been the best friend of small business in generations. Instant asset write-off, start-up support, lower company taxes for small businesses. All of these things are the most generous arrangements for small business. Section 46 of the Consumer and Competition Act. All of these things have been about revving up small business. You know where the jobs are coming from? It's come from the confidence the Turnbull government has given small and medium-sized business. It's just a shame that one of my favourite, Coxon's Radios up there in Rockhampton, not Google, not IBM, not BHP, they will have to pay higher tax because they will click over that $50 million mark. And that's a great shame for that family business, and I don't think they deserve that treatment from the Labor Party or One Nation.
Turnbull, you were asked about policies going into the next election. Mr. Turnbull,
Sorry.
Minister Cormann,
Sorry.
can you rule out Minister Cormann?
Hang on, listen to the gentleman here. Yes.
Are you anticipating another leadership challenge this week?
Mr. Turnbull, you were asked about your policies into the next election.
Can you rule out having any leadership ambitions?
Me?
Yeah.
This is my leader.
There you go.
And I'm ambitious for him.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks, Como. Okay, we'll just take, I think now that we've moved on, I think we'll take one more.
Mr. Common, can you rule out shifting your support to Peter Dutton?
I support the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull. Well, I support, that you're asking me hypothetical, I support Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister.
It's not hypothetical. There was a leadership ballot yesterday. Can you rule out shifting your support if he comes again?
I was very grateful when Malcolm invited me to serve in his cabinet in September 2015. I've served Malcolm loyally ever since, and I will continue to serve him loyally into the future.
Thank you very much. Why don't I just... I'll come back and deal with that. There, just to be clear, I think as you already know, there were a number of front benchers offered to resign. I've had discussions with all of them. What I'm endeavouring to do is to obviously ensure that the party is stable, to maintain the stability of the government of Australia. That's critically important, right? And so the cabinet ministers, apart from Peter Dutton, of course, who came to me and told me that they had voted for Mr. Dutton in the leadership ballot, have given me unequivocal assurances of continuing loyalty and support. So thank you very much.
Will you resign from politics if you lose the leadership? Was that you too?